being joined today by Aric Melder, Michigan attorney, who's going to help us understand some of the difficult issues that parents may face regarding child support, custody, and visitation. We all understand that there's nothing more important to someone than their child's well-being. So how is the custody of the children determined when parents split up?
First of all, thank you for having me. Let me jump right into that question. Custody of the children, in most divorce cases, is one of the most important issues and one of the most important things that the parties can either agree or disagree on. The court looks at several factors. It's called the best interests factor. And what that is, it's a group of factors that the court will make specific determinations on each one of those factors as to which parent the child should be living with. Which factor is stronger, which factor is weaker, that's up to the court. But it really determines on where that child is going to be living based upon those factors.
So can you explain the terms joint custody, physical custody, and legal custody?
Sure. When you're talking about physical custody, that's really where the child is traditionally living. Kind of the day-to-day operations, let's say, of the child. Where they're going to be sleeping, who's going to be doing the 9 to 5, kind of taking care of that child. The legal custody has to do with legal decisions, medical care, things of that sort. And joint custody is a term that involves both parties having joint custody or shared custody of the child. It can be joint custody for physical, joint custody for legal, or joint custody for physical and legal, or no joint custody. It really depends on the facts and circumstances of each particular case.
Okay. So once custody is determined, how is it decided how much visitation or parenting time the other parent will have with this child?
That's a great question. After the custody of the child, one of the second most important factors is the parenting time or visitation. That can either be determined by the parties' agreement or by the court. And the agreement can be as specific as the day and time, who's picking up, who's dropping off, or it can be as general as reasonable parenting time, where the parties decide amongst themselves how much parenting time the non-custodial parent is going to be getting.
I understand that there's a complicated formula used by the court to determine how much child support the non-custodial parent must pay. How does this formula work?
Well, that formula uses a lot of different factors to determine the amount that the non-custodial parent will pay, including how much income they receive, how much income the custodial parent receives, how much support that custodial parent and non-custodial parent are paying for any other children, and factors such as that to determine the amount of money that's going to be paid for the child, the amount of medical care, excess medical, how that distribution is going to be shared by the parties as well, including child care, how that's going to be divided up and how that's going to be paid for children, obviously, who are not in school full-time.
Is the child support formula something someone can look up themselves?
Well, it is. I'm sure there's websites out there that can give you indications and can give you help and tips. My suggestion in dealing with something as complicated and really as important as dealing with your child and dealing with your child support is to have an expert assist you. The amount of money that you spend having an expert will be well worth it when you have it done properly by someone who knows what they're doing, has done it before, will do it again, and understands how the system works. And that's a family law attorney who should be sought.
If a parent wants to change the amount of child support that was ordered, how do they do this? Is there a limit on how often they can have their child support reviewed?
Well, again, yes and no. The friend of the court will only look into it a certain number of times, and the friend of the court is kind of the intermediary or the agency that's in charge of making sure that child support is paid. Another thing that individuals can do, though, is when they go to a private attorney like myself, if there's been a change in circumstances, the non-custodial parent is making more money, or the custodial parent is making less money, or vice versa. The custodial parent is making more money and the non-custodial parent wants to change child support. Those change in circumstances are really what the court is looking for to be able to say, well, this is what it was on day 1, this is the change in circumstance on day 10, and this is why child support should be modified to this number.
Okay. You know, many times a parent does not do what they have to and are ordered to do, such as paying child support. Is there anything the other party can do to enforce a court order?
Most definitely. when a party is not complying with a child support obligation, that's not just an obligation, that's a court order. A court order is an order that's signed by a judge that has the force of a judge order. A judge order must be complied with. If the order is not being complied with, then the individual who is receiving or who is paying and the other party who is not complying needs to go to the court with an attorney to prepare what's called a motion. This document lets the court know that this order is not being filed, and they ask the court for enforcement. Also, a show cause is another option, but these are things that your attorney will explain to you. There's different pros and cons for each one, and a proper family law attorney can explain which one is going to be a best fit for you to have the judge help you enforce that court order.
Thank you, Mr. Melder. It sounds like the only way to ensure you get the best results for your children is to consult an experienced attorney like yourself. But before we go, is there anything important that we've missed here that you'd like to say to our viewers who are facing child support, child custody, or parenting time issues?
One of the things I want to stress is that when you're going through this difficult process, no one understands that better than an attorney who's been doing this and understands the process, how difficult this is. When you add on the fact that we're dealing with children, we're dealing with visitation, we're dealing with custody, and we're dealing with support of these children, a proper family law attorney needs to be in your corner. Calling an office like mine, where you talk to an attorney directly, the attorney helps you, and where the call is free, gives you that peace of mind of knowing that you've got all your ducks lined up. You've got your strongest advocate in your corner who can help you achieve the desired results. And that's something that we can help.
Great. Mr. Melder, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.